U.S. President George W. Bush made the radical announcement on Tuesday of the partial nationalization of 9 of the nation's leading banks.
The federal government will use a portion of the $700 billion financial rescue plan to inject capital into banks by purchasing equity shares.
The move to part ownership by the government was made to ensure that the banks won't be hoarding their bailout money, but use it to bolster lending to each other and to customers. The presidential candidates also announced their proposals to deal with the current financial meltdown.
Thank you, Toledo!
Barack Obama spoke in Ohio Monday.
Today I'm also proposing a 3-month moratorium on foreclosures. If you're a bank or a lender that is getting money from the rescue plan that passed Congress, and your customers are making a good faith effort to make their mortgage payments and renegotiate their mortgage, you will not be able to foreclose on their home for 3 months. We need to give people the breathing room to get back on their feet.
Obama also proposed allowing people to withdraw up to $10,000 from their retirement accounts without paying any penalty for the remainder of this year and 2009. A $3,000 tax credit for businesses for every new full-time job they create over the next 2 years, to suspend the tax on unemployment benefits for the rest of this year and next, and to have the Federal Reserve provide short-term loans to state and local governments caught in the credit crunch. John McCain made his announcement in Pennsylvania Tuesday.
On my orders, the Department of the Treasury will guarantee 100% of all savings accounts for a period of 6 months. I will cut in half the capital gains tax on stocks purchased and hold for more than a year. From a rate of 15 to 7.5%.
McCain also proposed that for 2009-2010, those over 59 who take money out of their retirement accounts should only be taxed at 10%, to raise the deduction on stock losses from $3,000 to $15,000, and like Obama, to suspend the tax on unemployment benefits for the rest of this year and next. We spoke to Counterpunch columnist Mike Whitney.
Well, McCain's proposals, which mainly focus on the cutting of capital gains tax and of additional benefits for the wealthy, are basically more of the same. He has suggested that we buy back mortgages of people who are being foreclosed on and then reduce the face value of the mortgage. But that's going to happen regardless because they can't allow 6 million people to go into foreclosure. That would just essentially collapse the whole system. That's the problem we have right now. So he's not really creating any innovations here as far as policy. He's just doing exactly what his financial advisors are telling him. And neither candidate shows that they really have any grasp of the situation as it stands now. Now, as far as Obama and his, creating new jobs for $3,000 incentive, that provides some incentive. Yeah. But if we look at the $700 billion bill, just the first installment on this bailout, that is essentially a tax on every man, woman, and child in America of $2,000. So it's basically a wash because we know it's going to be well over $1 trillion, probably $2 trillion. As far as the states and local governments needing the money, the federal government already knows that. I mean, unless you're going to let California slip into the ocean, you're going to have to take some responsibility there. And you can't let the 7th biggest economy in the world, California, just disappear. So there's going to be a stimulus package regardless of whether it's McCain or Obama. It's pretty well already decided to rev up the consumer engine that is now going in reverse because consumers in this country are actually cutting back so dramatically that we're looking at a steeper decline in spending in any time since the Great Depression. What we're dealing with is a generalized contraction of the entire system. If you look back to the last 7 or 8 years, the problem was inflated asset values. Everyone was feeling rich because the value of their house was going up, the stock market was going up, the bond market was doing well. And this commerce and this prosperity was all artificially created by the low interest rates and the expanded leverage in the investment banks. So now that we have a generalized contraction, what you're going to find is that people who feel less wealthy and are more cash-strapped and are underwater on their housing loans, on their mortgage loans, on their credit cards, on their student loans, on their car loans, are not going to be in a position where they can spend as much money. And in the last month, we've had something amazing happen, which is the rate of savings in this country has gone up for the first time, and I think certainly in a generation. And that's because people are afraid. They understand their situation. They understand that they're walking in quicksand and that the economic situation is getting worse. That's good as far as people saving and being more prudent as far as their own situation. But as far as the economy, when less money is being spent, there's less transactions, there's less economic activity, the economy shrinks. The only alternative to that at this point is fiscal stimulus, which means that the government is going to have to borrow more money from China, from the Gulf states, from the BRIC states, etc., so that we can sell them our treasuries so that we can pump more money into our domestic economy. And people are really doubtful that that's possible because the appetite for U.S. debt, for U.S. treasuries, is already beginning to wane. And if that doesn't happen, we'll have to raise interest rates to make our money more attractive. And if you raise interest rate, what happens to the housing bubble? Well, it crashes at even more accelerated speed. So it's kind of a vicious circle we're in right now. You know, essentially this whole bubble was created because wages were not keeping pace with production. Now that sounds kind of abstract, but if people's wages don't go up, then how can you grow the economy? The only way you can grow the economy, or that people can buy more stuff and contribute to this consumer economy, is if they borrow money. And the powers that be at the Federal Reserve and the Treasury understand that, understood that people were getting maxed out on their credit cards, their car loans, their mortgages, etc. But they would rather have you indebted to them than having your wages increase with production so that you can actually create a stronger, well-balanced society. And that's what has to happen, is wages have to increase so there's greater distribution to strengthen the society. It's not some leftist scam. This is an idea of the only way, and this is why China is saying if they're going to strengthen their economy, isn't it funny that, communist China is operating according to the old paradigm that we used to use in democratic America, which is we're going to raise the salaries of the people living on the farmland so they don't migrate to the cities because there's a loss of demand in the world paradigm right now. So we're going to increase their salaries so they start spending money buying the consumer products that we used to buy. And it's a very sensible program for expanding the economy.